when you know how to interpret data, you can get answers that other people can't find.
If you can tell us a bit more, how did you make the transition from having a job in IT to actually property development?
So I have to go back a little bit to actually understand that, Dan. So I have always done property. So I bought my first house at 18, I bought my first investment property at 21, and I owned my first house outright at the age of 24. So I had always done property in a buy and hold capacity. So, you know, doing that the long, hard way through negative gearing and all that sort of thing. But that worked very well for me. It took 20 years and I got to a point where I, on paper at least, was in a position where I should be financially free. And then, unfortunately, I got divorced and things happen where you have to sell all your assets, and I had to start again. And when I started again, I didn't want to wait 20 years to do it the second time. Okay, that was really important to me. So I went and did a lot of work in paying for a lot of education programs out there, and found that a lot of them were very motivational and inspiring, but not very detail orientated. And so I found that I was actually struggling in trying to get, whoa, nice pickup. So I was actually struggling to get ahead, and we got 5 mates sitting around my kitchen table that all had the same attitude, and that was, if we can help each other, then we can all progress and proceed together. And that served us well. We all did well in our own individual ways, and as one mate invited a mate, that kind of then created what is now 11,500 people in our property development network. So that kind of got me on the journey, okay? Whilst I was on the journey, I was working part-time like a lot of people do when they start out, but I had a go big or go home type attitude, right? So I wanted one big project that got me out. So I put everything that I had into my one deal, and I was quite fortunate that one deal earned me $1 million in equity in assets that I retained, and generate a 241k passive cash flow out of that.
So Rob, what would you advise somebody that is considering property development but has no money?
So firstly, your lack of resources should not stop you from being resourceful, okay? Money is absolutely needed to do a deal, but it doesn't need to be yours. And when you start to understand the different ways of controlling a property, there are many times where you can make money from a property without ever owning it. We've been indoctrinated with this philosophy that we have to buy it with traditional revenue streams, and, you know, have I got serviceability to buy this particular property, and have I got deposit? By having that limited thinking, it limits the number of solutions that we can actually come up with. But when we go, hey, I've got no money, now we have to be very resourceful and very creative in coming up with a deal. How do we work with the landowner? How do we work with someone who has some money but doesn't have the time or the skills? How do we find creative ways to give the vendor selling you the property a bigger return in exchange for time? When we start being creative like that, it's amazing the deals that we can do with very limited resources. You know, sometimes there are people in our network that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars with no money in at all. So it is absolutely possible. So my advice would be, learn that there is more to learn, and have a thirst for hunger for how do I do that creative approach, and manufacture money out of thin air.